5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the temperature the Orion capsule generates when it slams into Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour. For context, the surface of the Sun sits at roughly 10,000 degrees. The Artemis II crew is about to experience half a sun wrapped around their capsule. NASA says the risk is acceptable. The models said that before Artemis I too, and the models were wrong. Tonight we look at what acceptable really means when 4 human lives are on the line. Artemis II launched on April 1, 2026 from Kennedy Space Center, marking the first time humans have left low Earth orbit in over 5 decades. The spacecraft is currently following a free return trajectory that carries the crew roughly 5,000 miles beyond the far side of the Moon before Earth's gravity brings the capsule home. The mission is scheduled for a total duration of approximately 10 days, and we are now entering the atmospheric interface, the final, most critical phase of this mission. We've all seen the historic imagery: Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen completing their flyby 400,000 kilometers from Earth. But structurally, the flyby was never the dangerous part. Artemis II exists to answer one question: can Orion survive the return? To survive the 2,760 degrees Celsius plasma sheath, Orion utilizes a skip re-entry. Instead of a single ballistic plunge, the capsule dips into the atmosphere, uses aerodynamic lift to bounce back out, and then enters a second time. This reduces the peak deceleration forces for the crew, but it effectively doubles the thermal stress. Every seal, structural joint, and external sensor must endure 2 separate peak heating events back to back. This maneuver has never been attempted with humans aboard Orion. If you want to stay updated as this mission reaches its climax and we get the first data from the splashdown, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story is not finished, and we will be here for every development as the return window opens. Even with this skip, the crew will endure forces equivalent to 4 times Earth's gravity. When you hit 4 Gs, your body weight effectively quadruples. Imagine 3 other people your exact size sitting directly on your chest, making it nearly impossible to draw a full breath, while your vision starts to narrow into a tunnel. It is a violent, sustained, crushing force that tests the limits of human physiology. Everything now depends on whether the hardware can maintain the integrity of the cabin during the struggle. Operational updates from the transit have already tested the crew's resolve and the engineer's patience. Midway through the outbound leg, the crew reported a faint, burning odor near the spacecraft's hygiene compartment. While that might sound like a minor housekeeping issue on Earth, in a pressurized tin can 200,000 miles from the nearest fire department, it is a crisis. Flight controllers in Houston eventually traced the source to insulation warming inside a panel assembly. Thankfully, the system remained functional and no immediate safety hazard was identified, but it served as a stark reminder of the fragile complexity of the systems keeping these 4 people alive. The primary engineering focus, however, remains the thermal protection system. Post-flight analysis of Artemis I revealed irregular erosion patterns in the Avcoat heat shield that the original models failed to forecast. NASA's forensic engineering team eventually identified gas pockets in the Avcoat ablative layers. They determined that gases generated during the intense heat of ablation were venting unevenly through the material. This phenomenon increased localized char loss, creating pitting or deeper erosion than anticipated. While structural margins remained within safety limits, the divergence between the model and reality was a major red flag. Updated thermal models incorporating this gas-venting behavior were applied and validated before Artemis II was cleared for flight. The question remains, can we trust a model that was adjusted after a surprise, rather than one that predicted the outcome from the start? Everything now depends on that heat shield. Yet, a quieter, more invisible threat has been soaking the capsule for the last 72 hours. The Sun is currently in solar cycle 25, an active phase running much hotter and more unpredictable than forecasters predicted. According to NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center, the crew has been transiting through an elevated electron flux environment. These high-energy particles infiltrate the spacecraft's materials, burying themselves in the plastic and composite insulators of circuit boards and sensor housings. This leads to a phenomenon called dielectric charging. Static electricity builds up deep inside the hardware components. This problem doesn't damage the spacecraft immediately. It builds silently, like a ticking clock. When it eventually discharges, it causes phantom electrical noise, a tiny spike on a sensor or a corrupted data packet in the flight computer. Normally, digital filters catch these errors, but during a skip re-entry, the guidance computer is making dozens of critical corrections per second. If the sensors are noisy from 3 days of radiation exposure, those guidance corrections could be slightly off. In a hypersonic environment, a fraction of a degree is the difference between a safe landing and skipping off the atmosphere back into the void. The chain of concern is a stack of coupled risks that no simulation can perfectly replicate. Radiation creates electrical noise. That noise potentially skews the data during the first atmospheric dip. The skip maneuver is then executed with a tiny, unmodeled offset, and the heat shield, with its known gas venting issues, experiences a heat load distribution it wasn't specifically designed for. During the peak of this heating, ionized plasma surrounding the spacecraft blocks all radio signals. This communications blackout lasts approximately 3 to 4 minutes. For those minutes, the mission control screens in Houston go flat. The voice loops go silent. The spacecraft is entirely autonomous, making life or death decisions in a fraction of a second. 4 human beings must sit in the dark, feeling the 4G pressure on their chest, and trust the engineering. Beyond the internal electronics, the wider solar environment remains a wild card. Space weather forecasts currently show about a 10% probability of an X-class flare during the return window. An X-class flare is the most powerful category of solar eruption, capable of triggering massive radiation events. In risk management, that 10% isn't just a statistic. It's a variable that can compromise communication and avionics at the exact moment they are needed most. NASA has been remarkably transparent about these challenges, emphasizing that Artemis II is, at its heart, a qualification flight. It is meant to be the final hurdle before we go back to the moon to stay. But we must remember, safety is not a theorem. It is the systematic reduction of uncertainty. Every anomaly from Artemis I that remains partially understood represents a gap in our knowledge. When you combine those gaps with a high-energy solar environment and a first-of-its-kind crewed skip re-entry, you are operating at the edge of the envelope. After completing the lunar flyby, Orion began its final descent. Splashdown is scheduled for the Pacific Recovery Zone between April 10th and April 11th. In a few hours, we will know if Orion survives the return. These final hours will determine if the heat shield erodes as the new models predict, or if the unknown unknowns of deep space have one more surprise for us. If the shield holds and the sensors remain steady, we have a validated path to Mars. If it surprises us again, the entire architecture of human deep space exploration will be rewritten. The stakes go beyond the 4 individuals in the capsule. They involve the future of our species as a multi-planetary entity. The most dangerous phase is still ahead. The atmosphere does not grade on a curve, and reality does not care what the pre-flight analysis said. We will be here for the first words from the crew after splashdown, and for the technical data that follows. The return of Artemis II will tell us exactly how much we truly know about leaving home, and what it really costs to come back. Stay close. This story is just beginning.